Well, welcome back. We're ready to start again. For those of you who weren't here at the beginning of the session, I'm Amanda McDonald-Crowley. I was one of the jury members for this year's Transmediale, along with Misha Bieliki, Masaki Fujihata, Gunalan Nadarajan, and Christiana Paul. And this afternoon we're having presentations by all of the artists who've been shortlisted for the awards for this year's Transmediale. And the three speakers who we've got speaking next will be Alice Miceli. Alice is being assisted by Marie Lesourd from ASEF because she's not comfortable speaking, giving all of her presentation in English or in German. Then we'll hear from Joe Colley, who will talk about his work, Desperate Attempts at Beauty. And finally, in this hour's session, we'll hear from Emmanuel Andel and Christian Günzler, who are going to talk about their SHOCKBOT project. But our first speaker this afternoon is, for this session is Alice.
Okay, thanks. Well, my work is based on some pictures of victims of the Cambodian genocide. And I think I should begin by saying that over 2 million people were killed during the Khmer Rouge regime in Cambodia in the 70s. And around 4,000 people died in the S21 prison that was located in Phnom Penh. And among these, 6,000 people had a picture taken upon their arrival at the prison for bureaucratic matters. And I went to Cambodia and I researched among the 6,000 mugshots, and I managed to find 88 pictures that I could locate the picture date and the death date of the person in the picture. So these are actually the 88 pictures we see in my video installation downstairs. So actually what happens in my work is that the 88 pictures, they are materialized on sand. The duration and the visibility, you know, what's visible in the image, they are made possible through a screen of falling sand that's placed against the projection light. And actually this was a slide projection and projected against a black background so that the images were made visible only during the time the sand was falling in the projection light. So each person that we see in the pictures, they were last seen alive in these images. And each image lasts a period of time equivalent to the interval between date of picture and date of death of each person. I mean, this interval of time, this period of time, it matches a physical amount of sand that on its turn will materialize each image during a period of time that is equivalent to the period the person spent in the S21 prison. Actually, also the mugshots, they are displayed in sequence and they correspond to the arrival date of each person in the S21. Yeah, I think I should say as well that this is an experimental conceptual documentary. I think I could define it as that. And the intention was to deal with the viewer's perception by interfering in an unorthodox way with key elements, such as how and for how long an image can be perceived. So I think the work addresses central issues in the production of terror and war images, as we can see nowadays, the overload of information conveyed in the media, and the consequent passive position of the viewers. I'd like to develop this point, and Marie here is going to help me a little bit.
So I will talk about, the paper that Alice prepared in French and do try to do an overall translation. So for Alice, the way the information is conveyed today is structured in such a superficial way so that anybody can understand it. And for her, there is a kind of information show with the victim, where the victim have to look such a victim. So she called it the victimization of the information show. And to change the situation in a more in-depth approach, images related to information should be treated in a different way and with more time for the understanding of the possible meanings of the images. In this appropriation of the victim by media images, the dignity of the person is erased, is placed in the background behind the necessity of the immediate message. And she called like immediate message the one which is kind of sold in the information trade. And nowadays we are overwhelmed by a lot of photo images, and sometimes, I mean, a lot of time these images are about very moving information. For instance, the images conveyed through photojournalism, and these images concern places where people suffer, where people have pain. But what is the justification behind such images? Usually, so for Alice, these images should be a witness of a particular reality. But she believed that to be such witness of events which belong already to the past, to be such witness, you need a work on the memory, and you need a certain distance to think about it, and a thinking process. But it's not the case in our contemporary world, it's not the case in the real time, where people are shown with a succession of events and experience. And the event and the images which are shown like through TV or newspaper are shown in such a quick time that in a way they kill each other, they erase the meaning of these images, because news has to be new and not in-depth information. In front of this profusion of image and information, what is predominant is the indifference of people, even though these images should create more relation to what is happening in different places where people suffer. But in fact, these images, there is such an overwhelming of these images that they become too familiar and they don't touch people anymore. And the consequences is that people ask for more images, of such images. And she believes that the proliferation of such images is so important that already a critical limit has been reached. And because people don't have any more like references, they don't have any more idea and judgment to evaluate such images. And the distance, the judgment of the images on the images became more rare. And what is striking is that this pain should touch us, but in most of the cases, people are just touched, but in a very quick and very superficial way. And these images of horror provoke just artificial and intense fear or panic. And she believed that while showing that kind of images where people are victims and people get used to it and find it very normal. And when we try to show images in a more pure and a non-excessive way, when we try to show silent images, but when the silent can speak for himself, as Alice tried to do it with the photo of the S21 in her work, the statue of information and of reality of these images is very often put into question. And she used also the term of visibility of this picture to distinguish what is visible, what is shown through the images, but also she distinguished that from what is invisible and the kind of idea that the image suggests, so behind the visibility of it. And Alice believed that the images should be emptied from this excess of meaning and from this overwhelming aspect of the victimization of the people, and so that a real content can be created and can lead to a space, a silence, where imagination of people who see it can be nurtured. And in that sense, there will be a real connection between what you see and what people could think. I think, yeah, we have time. The Ritapan? Yeah. Alice would like to refer to a film documentary, documentary film that maybe some of you have seen. It's called S21, The Killing Machine, and it's by a Cambodian filmmaker, Ritapan, who is based in Paris. And he shot this film in Cambodia, in the prison S21, and he shot it with some of the survivors. So meaning, I mean, people who survive it, and also prison guardians and tortioners. And the very powerful aspect of this documentary is that Ritapan asked the prison guardians to do exactly the same kind of gesture that they used to do when they, in fact, were going to kill people and victims. And he does it as a police investigation police, like asking like the prison guardian who are in fact like the suspect. And there is a very huge, enormous difference between the cruelty of the consequences of such gesture by the prison guardians, because he's going to kill people, and the kind of daily mechanical system. And this leads also to think that these prison guardians who can do exactly the same kind of gesture in a very brutal way today, that they are also like victims of this incredible credulity, and that and years after what happened during the genocide, they cannot put into question the kind of method that they used to employ. And this example illustrates also that there has been no work until today on the genocide post-effect in Cambodia in terms of trial, memory rebuilding, etc. What is given through an image of people is a very difficult question to which human society today gave a very different answer. And for Alice, in the field of photography or in the field of film, this go very often through a particular mediation that we could call like the eye or the person behind the camera. And this moment, this mediation, is a very challenging moment for the relation between the person who film or photography and the subject which is filmed or photographed. And for Alice, this type of relation, this type of mediation is as much important as the image itself, as the end product. So, of course, the reutilization of the images of the prisoner of the S21 is a very difficult question, because it raised the question of the status or the meaning of these people who are given, I mean, the prisoner were given even more exposure, the viewers, and myself, I mean, and Alice as an artist. And in a work, what she tries to do is to invite the viewer into active participation towards what they are going or what they are seeing. And because what struck her, and it's also to refer what was said at the beginning of the presentation, it's not that these people look like victims, but more like the dignity of these people when they arrive at the S21 prison, because the dignity of these people, because they knew also that they were going to die, but there is not this victimization that you can see more in images on war, for instance, today through the media. Because what Alice would like to do is more not to give an easy access to such images, because she thinks that that kind of easy accessibility to some images given by the media today create a very easy and quick indignation of people, and in a way it's a kind of easy and expected answer towards such images. And what she would like to develop is more to provoke another way of understanding, at another level in the viewer, for the spectator of such a picture. And she would like the disturbing feeling provoked by these images to push the spectator to ask himself questions and to extract him or her from his or her passive situation or position. So to conclude, the main aspect, the strong line of Alice's work is more to find perfectly coherent way to give to the spectator efficient and simple way to see, I mean, between the fatal character of this killing machine which erased so many lives at the S21 venue, and at the same time while using the metaphor of the hourglass, which is a representation of the brevity of the lives, I mean, generally speaking, of the life of these people, but of the life of people generally speaking. So I think, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Marie, for assisting. And thank you, Alice, for sharing the thoughts on your work. The jury were impressed by this video installation, by its simplicity and quietude in dealing with quite difficult political issues, but also in the materiality of the way that she was working. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Our next speaker this afternoon is going to be Joe Colley from the States. Joe.
Hi. Well, I brought some words with me that are an inspiration to me. First of all, I'd like to say thanks a lot. This is a pleasure to be here. And also, I don't have a great deal of experience talking about my work because it's I work in pretty much isolation, but I brought some fragments and it's in no order. So I'm just going to dive in and try to give some kind of insight into where the work that was nominated here, which is a CD, where that came from. I think maybe we can start with some noise. This is the first track, it's just noise. So it goes on like that for a little while, and I guess the thing that I could say here is that my work is probably the least interactive, maybe, that I could think of to be in comparison, and it's also maybe apparently took the least effort, although a lot of sources of these sounds came from inside, which is not, how can you define something like that? But not to be dramatic about it. But personally, I never had an interest in some kind of universal expression, or for myself, I put the whole idea of communication just to the side. It doesn't, because I believe that each of us creates our own meaning in our own way, which is completely indefinable, and so you can see some of the dichotomies that we have here. It could be related to, we live in this digital age, which is things are on or off, but I prefer to think of the time that we live in as we find our meaning in between the black and white, of course. And so maybe I'll play some more here. This CD is a complete contrast between totally artificial sounds and then completely natural sounds without any modification. The first noise you heard is basically just silence amplified to its maximum level. So I guess that has meaning on its own, at least to me. This sound is some ice that's melting, so we can hear some of that. And the way that this came about is I started to realize that the way we all live is a form of schizophrenia. In my opinion, it isn't it's nothing that can be diagnosed, but for myself, the only way to exist day by day is just to kind of compartmentalize things like this. So what we have are very small actions that are kind of concentrated, and as I said, I didn't present this in any to be about something. It's more, these are experiments that I've done for myself, and basically just listening to natural phenomena as it disintegrates, things like that. In a lot of ways, I believe I come from, my background is in noise. Coming from America, it's very isolated. The artists, there's a lot of underground activity, but I never went to college, or I mean, everything I learned was on my own time, and just absorbing, my environment and reflecting it back. So I believe that noise has a value as a type of an abstract language that it's open to different translations. So this is what I enjoy. This is what I value about conducting experiments with sound, is that I think it refers back to this kind of foreignness. That's what I look for, is this feeling of being overwhelmed and not understanding what's happening, and it's a very difficult position to get to, and it gets harder for me, because that's another thing I notice quite often, is there's an inherent kind of a futility or an irony. It's, maybe you could say, sadness or something, which is the reasons that I'm doing this are to overwhelm myself and to confuse myself, but at the same time I already know the tricks. I know how it was made, so it doesn't work. But I keep trying. A lot of these things were made in kind of bad states of mind, and a lot of it I can't remember exactly how it was made. I have a little room full of junk, and I plug it into itself, and I make edits, and a lot of it, I mean, I enjoy that aspect of it, is I'm trying to break down or confuse myself into composing things that I wouldn't, if I thought about it rationally. So in a lot of ways, for me, this is, it's kind of a naked thing, and and as I said, I have no idea. I've never heard it from anyone else's ears, but I would hope that confusion would be something that you would take away from it. Something I think about is we make these sounds, and there's, as humans, the things that we create, we have some kind of affection for. They're like children in a way, and but at the same time, with the things that you love, you have this desire to also destroy them at times. And I think that's something that shouldn't be underestimated with your own work. Is a lot of people are definitely very gentle with themselves, and so that's sort of another technique, you could say, to subvert. I have a lot of chances to make, pretty music or something, or beautiful sounds, and I mean, there's a place for that, but at the same time, these are, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of mistakes here, and I think that makes it very, I don't know if it makes it human, but to me, it's honest. As far as the CD that I'm here to talk about, the title "Desperate Attempts at Beauty" is it relates to the same thing. Desperation is a situation of extreme selfishness, and so I'm trying to maybe with that title talk about this feeling when you're in a desperate situation, maybe clinging to the edge of the earth, you have a tendency to be able to see beauty in a heightened way. So I would never presume that a CD could bring you to that point, but that's the inspiration for it. So you could say it's sort of a test record for the human body, for tolerance, for sensitivity, and maybe a chance to explore instability. There's some trickery on this record. There's a long part at the end that kind of tests your patience and things. There's actually a lot of boring parts, or the parts that apparently seem to not change. Yeah, the idea of beauty. I could say that the title is sort of a joke about aesthetics, but I don't think anybody is shocked to get some noise record that has something about beauty. People don't. I think beauty doesn't mean very much anymore to a lot of people. Ugliness is pretty much accepted. So I guess it's a cliche. You have to find your own beauty. Referring again, like, to schizophrenia, there's some certain approaches that I think that I've never practiced any one of them, but I believe that there are a lot of ways to get to this point of losing your mind, or losing your rationality. Some people say Zen, or some kind of shamanic activities, and I think in very rare cases there, through art you can get there, but not. I mean, we could mention Duchamp. I think was close. You have to mention him, I guess. But at least for me, get that out of the way. Let me see here. Yeah, I could. Another strange thing for me to be in this position is I sort of see. I'm not a. I'm just kind of eternally frustrated with how do you present this moment. I mean, the important thing, I think, to all of us is this the moment of inspiration and that feeling. It's only lasts for a very short time, and what you have on video, on audio, these are kind of, recordings. They're husks of things that happened already. And the part that's very important is that action, and so when you look at it that way, that's also a very selfish position to be in, and whether or not it affects anybody else, or whether communication has to involve two people. It's like, if you're conscious of that moment, then I think something happened, and so that's the moment I'm looking for. I think if someone had questions, then maybe I could say more, but I think I could leave it there. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. The jury were also impressed by your sound installation in the visceral nature of the sounds that were produced, and the seamless juxtaposition of sounds from nature and electronic sounds. So thank you very much for talking about your work, Joe. Our third and final speakers for this session, or for this hour, before we'll open up for questions, Emmanuel Andel and Christian Götze, who are going to talk about their project SHOCKBOT.
Hallo, Christian Götze, Emmanuel Andel, wir treten unter dem Namen von Volker auf. Als erstes würden wir uns gerne bedanken. Wir freuen uns, dass wir im Rahmen der Transmediale unsere Arbeit präsentieren können. Den SHOCKBOT, der jetzt hier steht und sonst unten neben der Bühne, die Arbeitsweise des SHOCKBOTs besser vermitteln zu können, werden wir kurz erzählen, wie unser Werdegang ausschaut. Begonnen hat unsere Arbeit damit, dass wir händisch an der Platine, an der Hardware des Computers Manipulationen durchgeführt haben, indem wir mit Kabeln Kurzschlüsse erzeugt haben. Diese Kurzschlüsse an Prozessoren und Speichern führen zu Strömen, die der Computer neu zu interpretieren versucht. Dabei kommen Bilder heraus. Weil uns diese Bilder so gut gefallen haben wir Screenshots davon gemacht, haben die ausgedruckt. Das sind die Art von Bilder, die dabei entstehen, die man auch unten sehen kann. Es gibt grundsätzlich zwei verschiedene Modi, wie diese Bilder zusammen entstehen können. Entweder im ganz normalen ASCII-Modus des Computers, das ist aus dem DOS-Mode bekannt, da sieht das so aus. Die andere Möglichkeit ist, dass man Bilder in einen Speicher lädt und dann mal ordentlich Strom reinlässt. Das führt dann zu Verzerrungen der Bilder, also wie zum Beispiel hier. Also das ist ein hineingeladenes Bild in den Speicher und dann verändert. Einmal Christian, einmal ich. Die nächste Möglichkeit ist, das Ganze funktioniert auch während dem laufenden Computer. Wir haben hier ein Spiel gestartet, haben während dieses Spiel läuft die Kurzschlüsse auf der Grafikkarte erzeugt. Sieht so aus. Der dabei anfallende Hardwareverschleiß ist enorm. Die Grafikkarten machen es. Mittlerweile sind wir nicht schlecht, weil wir einfach wissen, wo die Grafikkarten empfindlicher sind und wo nicht. Also an den Prozessoren selber geht es nicht lang. An den Registern und Speicher dauert es länger und die Ergebnisse sind schöner zu beobachten. Also so haben wir gestartet. Das waren die Bilder. Weitergegangen ist das, dass wir daraus eine Show gemacht haben. Dazu wird der Christian dazu sagen.
Ja, starten mal das Video. Und zwar haben wir das dann im Rahmen von diversen Festivals und Partys haben wir das irgendwie weitergeführt und haben mit DJs, also vom DJ, das Audiosignal bekommen und das direkt auf die Platine kurz geschlossen. Das heißt, die Platine ist dann abhängig vom Sound, ja, und der grafische Output ist in Echtzeit vom Sound generiert und man sieht das dann ganz gleich, ja. Also das ist dann bewegtes Bild. Ja. Es ist halt auch sehr viel Verschleiß da.
Also dabei ist der Verschleiß am allerhöchsten, weil man den Strom, wenn man das Audiosignal durch einen Verstärker schleift und das verstärkte Signal nicht zu den Boxen schickt, sondern eben direkt in die Weichteile des Rechners, geht nicht lang gut. Das heißt, es ist einfach in diesem System der Fehler inkludiert. Es kann nicht lang funktionieren. Das ist auch der Grund, warum wir sehr viel Energie reinstecken haben müssen, dass wir den SHOCKBOT so weit kriegen, dass er irgendwie ausstellungstauglich ist, dass er eine Zeit lang läuft. Ist auch der Grund, warum das Teil nicht die ganze Zeit läuft, weil wir das nur unter Beobachtung eben rennen lassen können, damit es sich nicht zu sehr wehtut.
Ja, es gehört eigentlich dazu, dass er abstürzt. Also das ist Sinn vom Konzept. Ja. Also die zwei, der Rechner und der Roboter, gehören zusammen, hängen zusammen, sind ein System. Und es ist unausweichlich, dass irgendwann einmal das ganze Ding abstürzt.
Okay, also, ja, haben im Großen und Ganzen ist es erklärt, es ist ein geschlossenes System. Der Roboter ist abhängig vom Computer, er wird von ihm gesteuert und beschädigt ihn aber in seiner Funktionsweise. Es ist das einzige Können, das er hat, ist Kurzschlüsse zu erzeugen. Vollkommen klar, dass das nicht lang gut geht auch. Wir werden das Teil jetzt mal starten. Wir haben leider keinen Vorschau-Monitor, das heißt, wir versuchen es einfach. Bitte die Kamera haben. Okay. Die Funktionsweise des Roboters. Er positioniert sich im Raum und fährt dann mit der Drahtbürste, die hier gerade zu sehen ist, hinunter auf die Grafikkarte, die wir waagrecht montiert haben, damit sie besser erreichbar ist. Leider ist es uns jetzt nicht möglich, gleichzeitig das Output und die Vorgangsweise zu zeigen. Es ist, man kann das unten in der Bühne besser sehen. Wir werden das noch ein paar Mal präsentieren, wenn es jemanden interessiert. Kann man mal das Signal wieder umschalten auf dem Bot?
Also wir werden das jetzt einmal demonstrieren, wie das ausschaut, wenn man da wirklich so richtig reinfahrt und reinfetzt mit irgendwas. Da sieht man schon, wie das ausschaut. Ich meine, es ist beschleunigt. Der Roboter macht das normal schön langsam, ja. Und er trifft auch nicht immer und es ist auch nicht immer irgendein Output da und er schließt auch nicht immer was kurz. Und das wäre jetzt einmal die beschleunigte Version. Es ist halt dann so, dass es grundsätzlich zum Absturz führt irgendwann, weil es ist unumgänglich, dass das Ding irgendwann mal verrückt spielt und vorbei ist. Es ist halt so, dass dieser Fehler, den wir da erzeugen, also den der Roboter eigentlich selbst erzeugt, zu Kreativität führt, sage ich mal jetzt so unter Anführungszeichen, weil das ist, ja, sie beeinflussen sich gegenseitig und es führt dann eben zu diesem Output, der den Rechner steuert. Also es ist alles abhängig davon. Schaut schön aus, oder?
Ja, wir sind an und für sich fertig. Das war's.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel and Christian. The jury were also impressed by the the hardware hack nature of the work and also by the kind of redefinition between the relationship between software and hardware. If we could have some house lights, then we can take some questions from the audience. There are mics in both of the aisles, and we have a roving mic if people would prefer to use that. But you can, of course, direct your questions to any of the artists, to Alice, to Joe, or to Emmanuel and Christian. Do we have any questions from the audience?
No questions.
We were just like looking and watching, it seems, this afternoon. No? Yeah, Marie does. Thank you very much, Marie. Sorry.
No, before I just met Alice yesterday evening. I didn't know her before, and one of the first questions I asked her, I don't know whether it's interesting but I asked her also whether the work that she did, I mean, of course, it will be shown like here, it will be shown, I hope for you, in other like festival or exhibition, and I would like to know whether you plan to bring back also this work to Cambodia and to maybe engage a dialogue also with people that you met there and to have because otherwise it looks a little bit to me like appropriation of a part of a story which is which is still very sensitive and politically heavy in Cambodia. So that's why I wanted to know, I mean, I know the answer, but I wanted to know more whether you would, you are planning to go back to Cambodia to share also this experience. Thank you.
Yeah, I think a vital part of this project is to be shown back in Cambodia. I think to see what the local reactions would be and try to contribute a little bit to the memory work that I think that should be raised in Cambodia about the genocide. It's actually one of the most important things about this project. So actually I'm trying to make it happen, to find exhibition places in Cambodia, and I really hope this is going to happen.
Thank you very much. I think it's an interesting point too, and it was one that the jury mulled over for quite a lot of time too. So, do we have any other questions from the audience for any of the artists? No? That being the case, I'd like to thank all of the artists. Thank you very much, Alice. Thank you to Joe, and thanks to Emmanuel and Christian. now that we have a few moments, I think we can take a 15-minute break, and if you could convene back here at 2 o'clock for the final 3 artist presentations. Thank you very much.